let's move to the third stage of learning scale shapes so rapidly you're going to amaze even yourself, right? We got two strategies, first of all, or two areas of strategies, basically. We talked about those in the previous two videos. Go back and watch those. It's important. This is effective like nothing else. Mental first, then visual, and now we move to kinesthetic, or feeling, you could say. And you need to get the patterns down into your fingers. What does that mean? It means that you can remember things mentally, you can remember them visually, as we talked about, and then you can remember them as a feeling in your fingers. And that is the last level. And that is super fast. That's the amazing part. The mental is slow, the visual is faster, but the kinesthetic is super fast. You know, it just goes through all the... There's no way I can visualize that fast or think that fast. You know, it's just my fingers who knows their way around. Like, you can walk around the town you know so well without even thinking about where you're going, right? Because you know the road. You're not thinking about, I got to turn right next time. You just turn right. Yes, you know, you've been doing it 1,000 times, the same way to work every day. The same thing happens here, but on a very rapid level. So how do you get that kind of kinesthetic memory, you could say? And you do it by doing something that most people don't do. You stop playing the scale up and down, or the arpeggio up and down. It's a cool technical exercise to play something up and down like that, because you really get to, you know, and it's an okay thing to do in the beginning, right? You want to learn the scale shapes, so you go up and down like that. It's a cool exercise, but it's only a tiny fraction of what you need to do to remember the thing, because you don't want to remember it as the alphabet, for instance. You can't remember. If I told you, okay, give me the middle letter in the alphabet, you'll go, just a second, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why do you have to do that? Because it's stored as a sequence. The B comes from the A, the C comes from the B, the D comes from the C, right? It triggers. In the brain, the next letter is triggered by the previous letter. It's stored as a sequence, which takes up almost no space in the brain. It's such a cool way of storing things, but you don't want to store it like that. The reason why you can't remember a phone book, we don't have those anymore, but you know, when I was a child, there was these people who could remember, just young, you know, just remember phone books or remember a massive amount of information. And the key is always the same when you ask them. It is that they visualize it in some way, right? I see it as a landscape. That's how they explain it, because you can remember amazing amounts of information that way. But storing stuff sequentially will not give you any freedom as to look up on the queue and find the whatever guy that's there in the phone book. You have to visualize. It has to be a 3D universe. And the same thing goes here. That if you go up and down the scale, you'll store the information sequentially. One note follows the other. And your fingers will remember that. That's the scary thing. And then when you solo, you go up and down the scale, because that's what you've been practicing for thousands of times, right? So of course that's an important exercise, but you want to shuffle the notes. And there are two ways of doing that. First of all, let's say we're in the key of E. Got a little waltz going on. Right? And you want to learn any scale shape. Let's do some natural minor. Right? You want to learn that. And the first way of doing it is improvising. And people say, I can't improvise. Yes, you can. Just pick random notes. It might not sound good, but you're improvising. Take a little area at a time and then just shuffle the notes around. And challenge yourself to see if you can find the note. Right? And then expand the area with new notes until you can just randomly pick. Right? Because you see a landscape, you use the visual image of the scale shape here, and then you teach your fingers to walk in that. The second way, this is you know, mandatory. You have to do that. If you want to learn scale shapes, you know, learn them up and down a couple of times until you got them down. Have the mental explanation and the visual image of them, and then start shuffling the notes around in a greater and greater area on the fretboard with the shape you're learning. And then the second thing that is crucial, second way of practicing this, is sequences. And I'm just such a big fan of sequences, because they teach my fingers to move in different ways. And when you use them to learn scales, what are you doing? You're basically shuffling the notes around. Right? You're shuffling the notes around. You have to now, you're forcing yourself to be able to up there, so back then, and then up there. Okay, right? So the same thing happens as when you're improvising, but now you can practice something that is a tool of improvising. Right? You see, when you start combining sequences and ending them, you have licks, you have lines, right? So the more sequences you can practice as you are learning scale shapes. Now you're learning two things at once, right? You're shuffling the notes around, using systematic sequences that does that, and you never run out of sequences because you signed up on Sequentia. .com, which is a solution of ours. I'm not going to talk about that in this video, but you use sequences to build that kinesthetic, that feeling of the scale shape. So it's in your fingers now. It's like your feet. It's like driving your car to work. It just happens. You can do all kinds of things. And if you work in some other place someday, you keep taking the same road to work without thinking about the fact that it's another place because you're programmed to do so, right? The same thing happens here. You can program your fingers, that muscle memory, to learn where the notes are. And that's what you want to do. But see, the reason why this seems so hard for most people is that they don't take the mental perspective first, then the visual, and really work with each one of them. And you might sit down every single time you're practicing the scale shape, tell yourself the 5-second story that you told yourself yesterday about how it's constructed, how it's symmetrical and then not symmetrical, how you got a 6-note shape there that's okay, and then a totally different one down there, right? Then go on to the visual part. Use the 3 different methods of visualization as you go through your day, and then sit down and remember everything when you practice so you can use the kinesthetic part. The reason why this seems frustrating to most people, learning all those scale shapes and all those arpeggio shapes that we can learn, is that we don't have a strategy that actually makes it easy and makes it efficient. And this is the strategy. But if you want to go much deeper into this and really lay out a 5-week plan where we take every single concept, this is just one little part of how to learn scale shapes rapidly. But you can apply that right now with no course, nothing. But if you really want to go into utilizing all the principles of rapid learning at the same time when you practice, for 5 weeks, where we take the pentatonic scale and all those insecurities you have about moving from one shape to another and, that hesitation, we disintegrate that, we destroy that. So this challenge is put to sleep forever in 5 weeks. That's a guarantee.